It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hello and welcome again to another episode of Bourbon with Friends. I'm Paul, joined by Connor, and today we have a special guest with us. He's a James Beard nominee, also was Bravo's top chef. Brother Luck, man, how's it going?
Man, you made me feel special. I'm doing good when you give me an intro like that.
You are special, dude. Like listen, anybody that has the blue check on Instagram special because they don't want to listen to any of the shit I send them. They're like, nah, go away.
No, I think that's one of the biggest pieces that I've learned over the years is regardless of what kind of status you achieve when it comes to, your brand, stay approachable, man. Don't get caught up in that celebrity nonsense. Like, remember the people that got you there. Remember the people that still support you. And, I think that's important.
Oh, 100%. It's, I don't understand people that don't talk.
Man, I work with a lot of divas. It's crazy. Like, and I have no filter, so I'll be calling people out. I'll be like, man, come on now. Like, you a glorified cook. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, come on.
Oh, geez, Colin, taking shots. That's how you gotta be when you're the top dog.
Yeah.
Oh God. So we met randomly on a live with 291 a couple months ago, which that's how we ended up following each other. And it was interesting because I'll admit, I'm not like the foodie, the person that watches like all the food shows and everything. So but I got messages like, how the hell did you like get on a live with Chef Brother Luck? And I was just like, he got on and said, what's up? Yeah. I mean, like, what do you want me to say? Right. And so that like kind of goes to the cool factor of what you said, be approachable, have fun. So kudos to you on that, my man.
No, it's so important, and it's crazy too, because we were talking just a minute ago, and it's like, what got you into whiskey? Honestly, 291 really gave me the background of the why when it came to the bourbon and it came to the rise and what they do. So I always want to support them because we've all come along on the same journey in the same city.
Right. And a lot of the cool stuff that we're starting to see is coming out of Colorado.
I am mad at it.
Especially from whiskey. Yeah. You got the home turf advantage for that one, man. Like,
yeah. No, we get some good stuff up here. And, whether I'm working with 291 or I'm getting to do something with like Woody Creek. I mean, I just did Ask Me Food and Wine with them back in October. And their spokesperson is Frank Gallagher, William H. Macy from Shameless. Yeah. And it's like, I got to cook with Frank Gallagher all day long at Aspen and drink whiskey. Like,
from
doesn't
Shameless,
get better than
I know him from Wild Hogs.
So do I.
I actually told him, I said, I know everyone knows you from Shameless and like that's what they're gonna be like supporting you for, but like I'm a real fan. I know you from The Last Dragon. So he was like,
wow, that's a good one.
He was like, wow, that's like 1982. You showing your age. I was like, well, you were in the movie, man. So
I remember I had Wild Hogs on DVD. That's long ago to me. DVDs are long ago to me. So like, I remember having that on DVD and watching it over and over and over again. So
this was Betamax.
Yeah,
this was Betamax.
Betamax. Oh God. Listen, all right. I'm gonna date myself on this, but I remember when you would like see all like, you would watch them just in case like Titanic came on, you could see through the grainy and see like Kate Winslet's nipple or something like that when you're like 10. You're like, oh hell yeah, that's exactly what we have. Stupid Betamax is what brought me back to that from being like 12 and stupid. So man, like today, like we're gonna talk about some cocktails. I'm gonna talk about mine first, only for the aspect that mine melts.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm going to be selfish in that. So these are going to be some really cool cocktails. I know everyone's like looking for like interesting cocktail recipes during the holidays. And both of these are going to be unique. I'm just going to put it this way because your boy over here, not me, put soy in a simple syrup, and I've never seen or heard that before. And I'm really excited for that. I am hype as F because I love soy sauce. So I'm really excited to try that. This guy is an Oreo freak. I am a Oreo fanatic. If it has Oreo in it, I would eat it. If there was unleaded with chopped Oreos in it, I would be like, that is a spicy ass milkshake. All right. I would literally just probably destroy it. So this for the YouTubers, this is what it looks like. I call it a dirty Oreo shake. It's got 2 ounces of bourbon. I usually use Weller for that. I like Weller and a lot of my cocktails. It holds up, but you can use really anything. Buffalo Trace, Old Forester, things like that. I put about 6 scoops of ice cream in it. It's not like I didn't have like the whole nice big scooper, so it was probably more like 4. There's about an ounce of milk in there, an ounce of bourbon cream as well. And then you put it in a blender and mix it all up, and here we go. It's delicious.
So explain the bourbon cream. That was when I read the recipe, I was like, okay, so is it just like, is it something that you buy, or is it something that you infuse?
Yeah, no. So bourbon cream. So I use Buffalo Trace bourbon cream. It's like $20 that you can buy at the store. And so I use bourbon cream because I liked it from the aspect of like keeping it real from an Oreo perspective, right? You have that creamy middle. So throwing something that was cream related instead of just putting milk and bourbon and ice cream and Oreos together, which is normal. I think there's a lot of stuff that go into that.
Yeah.
I was like, let's throw bourbon cream in. And then the rim itself here is vanilla icing with crushed Oreos around the rim.
I mean, like, you're going to get white girl wasted tonight.
Look at this shit.
Yeah, man. Got milk.
It is so good because the cookie really, you get that sweetness of the cookie, but then you get like that, you still get a nice little kick from the bourbon. It'll make a couple. It'll probably make like 2 or 3 glasses. It won't make like a ton. So it's easy if you want to double, triple, quadruple it, put more bourbon in it. And then you can put more ice cream in if you like it thicker, if you like it less thick. But it would be a very interesting cocktail for your Christmas parties if you are going to try it, because there's a lot of people that aren't going to try this.
Yeah, who wants eggnog? I mean, like, skip the egg. Yeah, skip the eggnog.
Gross.
Just make Oreo bourbon ice cream shakes. Like, that's just, let's keep it simple.
I'm definitely getting white girl wasted on this thing. It's so good. I'm going to go downstairs and drink the rest of it later.
The next frame, he's just going to have the picture and he's just going to be like,
just chugging it from the show. This shit is delicious from the picture. Just like down it, cover it. Like I have like I'll need a bib.
Yeah, you need one of those like the wine bottle straws, those big giant ones that
yeah. Great idea.
You're giving me way too many bad ideas on this.
You're gonna get plastered tonight, Paul. I can tell.
On this, like this is like words can't describe how much I love Oreo milkshakes anyway, but I love bourbon just as much. So you have bourbon and Oreo milkshakes. It's a bad decision, man.
And the bourbon cream you have in there too. What's the Buffalo Trace bourbon cream alcohol percentage?
Not high.
Yeah, it's not, but it's still something, There's a lot of
30%, 20-30%.
There's a lot of alcohol in there.
Funny. Well, I think when we talk about flavors, for me, I'm a chef through and through. And it wasn't until I opened my own restaurant, my very first like legit restaurant with a liquor license back in, I think I opened that up in 2014, where I realized like I had to learn how to bartend. Like, I always kind of like been a part of the bar, but I never actually like built a bar program, built cocktails, like all those things. So I approached it from like, the mindset of a chef. Like at the end of the day, flavors are flavors. And I understand sweet, sour, salty, bitter, spicy. Like these are the things that all resonate for me. So when I was looking at cocktail compositions, I was always like, well, where's the balance? Because I do that with dishes.
Right.
Is it sweet enough? Is it sour enough? What's complementing each other? And then when I start looking at drinks, you kind of look at a cocktail and you're like, okay, well, there's some type of sweet, and then there's some type of spice or heat from the liquor, but then you're adding citrus for acid, you're adding dilution, right? Whether it's ice melting or it's some type of soda. So I really started to see a lot of similarities, and then it just kind of led me onto this research of like understanding the difference between a bourbon and a rye and scotches and tequilas and all these different types of spirits. So a lot of my journey actually just came from research and development. And then I hired
Right.
some really good bartenders when I opened up my restaurant 4, who like schooled me, and they were like, okay,
Right.
we're not going to have any maraschino cherries on your bar. Let's get rid of the curacao. We're going to do this. This looks like a college frat bar right now. We got to get rid of this. So, that was kind of the cool part. Is the last couple of years I've been working with amazing bartenders. We have a phenomenal cocktail program at my restaurant 4 and at Lucky Dumpling. And I still stay very involved in the bar. So a constant conversation that I'm always asking is, how would I think about it as a chef? So like you mentioned earlier, why did I put soy in a cocktail? Well, I was judging a cocktail competition here, and they kept talking about these shrubs and these brines. And I'm like, what do you mean you're putting saline solutions in your cocktails? And they're like, oh, you got to increase the salt water. And it just kind of dawned on me. I'm like, well, salt's a flavor enhancer with food, right? With baking. Yep.
Right.
You add salt to enhance flavor. You don't add it for flavor. So I really thought about that. So when we were talking about old fashions, I'm like, I think most old fashions are always too sweet. So how do you balance out the sweetness? You do it with salt. So we started playing around with some of these different things. And I'm like, you know what? Well, instead of using saline solutions, let's just get some soy sauce. It's extremely salty. And, whether we're using a soy sauce or we're using a miso paste, these are things that can be worked into a drink. So it just kind of changes your entire, like my palate's better than 90% of the bartenders I work with because I taste food for a living. So, it kind of played around to where we started figuring out this version of the old fashioned. So, here at Lucky Dumpling, we play around with a lot of like hip hop, a lot of dumplings. So we play around in that era. And like when I start talking about the old fashioned, I was like, well, we need an ODB. Let's make an old dirty fashion. So that's kind of where this cocktail came from.
Here it is.
Nice.
Why don't you, while we're on it, why don't you talk about it? What's in it, how you make it, and all that good stuff?
Yeah. I'll actually give you a whole tutorial. Look, I set it up.
Oh,
there we go. Yes.
I love it.
Look at that. Okay. So a couple of things that I was thinking about was, how are we going to make this? So the first part is, when you're making a good old fashioned, you need good amount of dilution. So, we use these jars just to really kind of not only capture ice, but it will allow the liquor to sit in it and start to melt down that ice. So I'm going to use the 291 American. Like I said, I'm gonna support them because I love them a lot. But I like this American because it's very neutral. It's not too heavy on the barrel spices that you would expect, but also it's very neutral, so it does well with some of these cocktails. So I'm just gonna put 2 ounces in there, 2 heavy ounces. Because we're gonna get white girl wasted today.
I'm in.
Yes, we are.
And then I made this simple syrup. So this syrup is soy sauce, brown sugar, water. Then I did 5 spice, which is star anise, fennel seed, clove, Szechuan, and cinnamon. So those spices were actually simmered in that simple syrup with water, sugar, and brown sugar until we got that. So we're gonna put a 1/2 ounce of that in there.
Which smells unreal, by the way.
Oh yeah, the whole house smells delicious. Really adds to it. And the one thing, when we talk about, if you're making a Negroni or you're making an actual old fashioned, the dilution is such an important piece. So, hitting it like 40, 50 times is always my thing on that is don't be afraid to stir it, make it a show, give the guests the visual of that look. But you're really just trying to focus on the dilution to have that water kind of soften a lot of those notes that you're getting out of the alcohol.
So you're really trying to focus on bringing the flavor out of the drink by doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you want those things to blend, and this is where we teach a lot of our staff too. Don't be afraid, to grab a straw and taste it, make sure your balance is there, because recipes are a guideline, right? They're not everybody has different ice size. There's so many variables that a recipe is always going to be a guideline. So you want to kind of play with it and make sure that you like it before you get to that point. So dilution on that's really good. You can taste the soy, you can taste the brown sugar, you can taste the spices that are in there. what we're gonna do is we're just gonna set that over a nice little ice cube. Hey, you can't have one. And
Oh, come on, just one.
yeah, just one, please. We're just gonna strain that right over that ice cube and allow that to set. So that's gonna continue that distillation, or that dilution, nice and slow.
I think you bring up like a point that a lot of people miss when they're making old fashions is the dilution of the alcohol. And I think that's probably where a lot of people, when they make them at home, miss the mark.
Well, and that's the biggest part too, is like, I'm a huge Negroni fan. And drinking Negronis, it's really about dilution. I think it's one of the easiest cocktails, but it's one of the hardest cocktails because, at the end of the day, it's based on 3 ingredients done right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna finish this cocktail with a little maraschino, a little orange twist. We're gonna put a couple dashes of orange bitter in there, and I'm feeling pretty good about a cocktail. So
That looks fantastic. That was awesome watching you make it too. People are gonna really enjoy that.
I think that's an important piece. If you're gonna make a good cocktail, don't be afraid to learn the technique of what is necessary to pull it off, right? So
Right.
when you're making a good old fashioned, make sure you get that ice stirred up, make sure that dilutes it down. Think about the balance, right? You add the sugar, and it doesn't always have to be simple syrup. It could be maple syrup, it could be tamarind paste, it could be brown sugar that's cooked down. You can change, it could be a molasses. There's so many different elements of sugar that you don't have to just limit yourself to like, this is my simple syrup. So
Right.
I always encourage that. Like, I actually like working with 291 makes this deck, and this is actually a really good sub for a simple, and their old fashioned. It's one of their signature cocktails when they make them, is they actually sub out the simple for that deck, and that's an orange clove liqueur. So definitely some cool stuff. So cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
It's a fun cocktail.
That is so unique.
I think that's what it should be.
It's so orangey to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, which obviously the Asian kind of flair that's with it, orange goes really well. But it like every sip I'm taking so just from a normal bourbon guy who's just used to regular old fashions that you get in Kentucky, like my whole flavor, my whole palate's like, what the fuck are you doing right now? You just went from an Oreo milkshake to soy in a cocktail. What are you doing?
Those are literally polar opposites.
I really like it because it's got that nice, you're getting that sweet, sour, and salty, right? Like it's like those 3 really nice combinations. And I mean, it's so unique to me because I don't know anybody that's ever put it in, like I said. And then I went a little interesting on the bourbon. I did use Old Forester 150th anniversary, 126 proof, because I was like, if we're gonna do it old and dirty, let's do it really old and dirty. And I'm gonna make it again, like, but like we make like it make like a bunch of soy, like a bunch of the simple syrup, like, so I have a ton. So I'm gonna play around with it with like different bourbons and stuff like that to see which one I fall on. But I was like, for this one we'll throw something interesting in it. That's why it's also like incredibly dark.
Well, and that's one of the tricks that we do also in the restaurants is every time we finish a wine bottle or a liquor bottle, we actually we'll soak them, get the labels off of them in hot water, but then we'll actually use those to refill with simple syrups. So we have all these different simple syrups in our fridge of all these flavors, because the one thing I like to teach a lot of my staff, whether it's my bartenders or it's my kitchen team, is you have to think about food as preservation, right? If you didn't have a refrigerator, what would you do with this product before you lost it? If you harvested all these peaches at the end of the summer, what were you going to do with them to get through the winter?
Right.
So making simple syrups is a great way to utilize leftover fruits and some of your spices that are getting a little bit older. So it's a great way to actually infuse. And it's some of the things that we do on a regular basis. So having a soy caramel is great for a cocktail, but it also could turn into a great sauce that could be drizzled on a seared scallop or a piece of fish.
Ooh.
So, it's got a couple different variations that you can utilize it for. So this is the perk of having a chef teach a cocktail.
Yeah. Exactly.
How difficult, or lack thereof, I mean, maybe it wasn't, but from a chef's perspective, right? Is alcohol harder to work with when you're making cocktails than from a food perspective?
Absolutely not. It's all flavors. I mean, you have to do the education to understand the flavors.
Right.
You have to know that a rye is going to have a lot more heat on it versus a
Mhm.
bourbon. It's
Yep.
going to have a lot more oak. So these are things that you have to learn about your ingredients. But once you understand that, then it's like, okay, well, if I know I'm working with all these baking spices in this bourbon because this oak is giving off the cinnamon and the vanilla and all the things that you would get out of that wood, then I need to start pairing that with things that are going to work really well. So now I'm thinking, what goes well with that? Well, peaches work well, apples work well. You talk about this drink has a lot of orange in it. Well, it's December. We're in citrus season, right? This is
Mhm.
this is the time where citrus
Yep.
fruits start to become abundant. So you're going to start to see the kumquats and oranges and grapefruits and Maya lemons. This is why I picked this cocktail, because for me, fall spices and then going into winter season and having citrus fruits to me is the ideal candidate for making a cocktail.
It's very good. Like I think everyone needs to try this at least one time because it's going to blow your mind in what you're thinking an old fashioned is and how this is going to be completely different. Connor's over here going, shit, I wish I didn't get home from work 20 minutes before. That's the reason why Connor doesn't have either of these. He got off work really, really late, which is fine.
It happens.
Like,
it happens. I'm
It
still at work.
happens. Yeah, it happens. I'm really jealous. I can tell you this much. I am gonna get all this shit and make every single bit of this, very soon. I have a question kind of more curtailed to specifically whiskey than cocktails. It's very interesting listening to you give your, the notes that you're getting from certain aspects of foods, of whiskeys. Obviously you support the 291 whiskey brand, great brand. But when you're drinking whiskey, you're getting off a long shift, you're getting off a long day. What are you reaching for on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, that's tough. I drink everything, so I feel like I gotta include everyone. Whether it's wine or it's cocktails or it's beer. Jefferson's collab was a favorite of mine. They did a collaboration with Ed Lee.
Yep.
And I love that chef's collaboration. I think that's just a very unique bottle. So that's something that has slowly dwindled its way out of the bottle. I was just up in Montana cooking, and I picked up a new bottle out of Whitefish, Montana. I can't remember the label on it, but it was phenomenal. But that's been something that I had a couple friends over the other night, and they wanted to try something fun, and that was what I actually opened up. So, it just kind of depends. There's so many different bottles I end up with. A special bottle is always going to be the Sinatra.
It's Log Still Distillery, Monk's Road, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I forgot it too for a second, and I was like, wait a minute, I know what he's talking about. Then I was like, wait, I need to make sure I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, we were up there, myself and another one of the top chefs were up there doing a private event, and you go in the store and you're like, oh, what's local? And we were both really impressed with that tasting, so we both bought a bottle.
Were you at Yellowstone Ranch?
My wife said this the other day. She had me cracking up because she's a big fan of the show, and she's like, in a world full of Karens, be a Beth.
I've heard that so many times. I will tell you, the one thing that got me though is like the ranch is named Yellowstone, and it's based in Montana. And for the longest time, it took me. It just really screwed with my brain, right? Like I'm like, how in the world does that correlate?
You're going back to social studies and geography class.
Yeah. So tell everyone that may not know who you are, like kind of how you got into being a chef.
Yeah. So my name is Brother Luck. I am the chef owner of Lucky Dumpling, 4 by Brother Luck, and the studio here in Colorado Springs. Been cooking for about 25 years. Got into culinary arts as more of a necessity. I was a teenager. I was kind of on my own, and cooking was a way of having free dinner every night. So I think when you're food insecure, finding a constant source of food was awesome. I figured I'd probably meet some girls too. So
Isn't that why we all pursue all of our passions? I know I was passionate about baseball, and part of the reason it's like I know there are some babes watching me right now.
Yep. And my wife, who, we're getting ready to celebrate 19 years in a couple weeks, was a waitress at one of those first restaurants. So
so
it worked out. It worked out. But I've been very fortunate in my career. I've traveled the world. I've worked in a lot of crazy places and done a lot of crazy stuff. Somehow ended up on television doing that whole cycle of Food Network's Chopped and beat Bobby Flay and did beat him, and a couple seasons of Top Chef. And now it's just more about the give back. I love my restaurants, but I love my team and I love to give back. So it's about which organizations are we supporting. We have a lot of military here in Colorado Springs. My family's military, my wife's family's military. So, it's a big part of what we do in our give back. At-risk youth, that's a big part of my story. So, we're very involved in a lot of the schools and the programs here to help some of our next generation. And I like to drink a lot of bourbon. So
that's all. And the perks of that is you own a restaurant with your own bar.
I've got a couple bars. I mean, I think when we did the live, I was at my house, but I'm in the studio now, which, we're slowly building this bar out, but then downstairs is Lucky Dumpling. So if I need anything, there's more stuff down there, and then Ford's right up the street. So it is a perk. I got lots of bougie cherries on the regular.
It's a massive perk. Meanwhile, I'm over here going I need to go whiskey hunting. I'm under 100 I'm under 250 bottles now. I'm not where I need to be in that scenario.
The perk too is owning restaurants is you could buy at wholesale prices. So when you're buying by the case and you're getting multiple cases, you end up getting free bottles in those cases. So usually those free bottles is kind of what I used to build a lot of my inventory at my house.
How long have you been into whiskey?
Really in probably the last 10 years. I moved back to Colorado in 2012. I got hooked up with 291 to do a dinner, and I didn't really know much about 291. They were still pretty young in what they were doing, and I did a dinner at the distillery, and I think I'm still the only chef to have ever cooked in that distillery. And we did this beautiful dinner with Michael and Philip and the whole team. And I got a really in-depth tour of not only what they do, but why they do it. And that was powerful because I feel that same way about my ranchers. I feel that same way about my farmers.
Right.
About the people who supply my fish. I mean, this is something that I already feel passionate about when it comes to food. I had never really seen it in the beverage side. So that was an aha moment. And then, you fast forward a couple of years, I end up on Top Chef Kentucky and get kicked off. What do you do in Kentucky when you're living out there and you have nothing to do? You drink a lot of bourbon. Yeah. So, I think that was kind of another piece of that. And then, you go to church and meet a whole bunch of guys, and all it takes is to realize that everybody connects through, whiskey, and those are some of the best retreats because everybody brings their batches and their bottles.
Yep.
Oh yeah. And that's, I mean, I basically got into bourbon because JC was tired of me not drinking it. And he was like, well, if we're going to be friends, you better drink this shit. I'm tired of seeing you drink. I'm tired of seeing you drink Mike's Hard. No, it wasn't Mike's Hard Lemonade with the twisted teas and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, let's not even talk about my younger days of what I would drink. So
that's how it goes, though. I've introduced a couple of my friends and family members into higher quality because I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in the hood, and everybody drank, really, really bad brandy or generic cognacs like Hennessy, and it just, you don't really know anything about anything. And as I got educated on quality and flavor, I really started to introduce a lot of my friends. So I have friends now who have these massive collections. They're they'll reach out to me and be like, hey, can you find me this bottle? Because I can't get it. And I'm like, sure. Because you have the wholesalers and the reps who can just type it in their computer and send it to you in 3 days.
Lucky ass.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
that's a tip. That's a tip. If you have a favorite restaurant that you support, get in good with the bar manager because
Yeah, it's a good point.
There you go.
Yeah,
I
they
didn't
might
even
have
think
access
about
to
that.
that
yeah.
bottle of Blanton's you've been searching for. They might be
Oh
able to get
God.
for you.
It's not
Yep,
even talking about Bland's.
I have a
People are nuts
local
about that.
cigar bar where I am, where the manager of the store is always like, "Hey," I remember she told me, I told her I was looking for a bottle of Larceny Barrel Proof. And I was like, I can't find this anywhere. And she
Good
goes,
bottle.
I'll put it on the order. It ended up not being able to come in, and I actually found it a few weeks later saw on the shelf for the first time ever. But she was like, it's funny you say that, because she was like, you know what? I'll get an extra bottle next time my my allocation comes in. And I was like, wow, that is like the coolest thing ever. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's a good point. Those restaurants, they get those allocations before. And I think I read an article on that once, where restaurants get allocations before anyone else does, because they're buying the most and they're serving the most at the end of the day.
Absolutely. But then it's interesting because then you have like liquor stores who get major allocations too, but it's weird because they can get things that we can't, and I can get stuff they can't. So it might not be an expensive bottle, but I can go across the street and go pick it up and he's got it. So, there's always cool stuff like that. But, when you talk about allocation, it just reminded me of a funny story. So I had opened 4 and I had this beautiful collection of whiskey there. And I had gotten all these, not whistle pigs. What's the rare one that everyone tries to get?
The Boss Hog.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. No, the one that Sazerac makes. Sorry, my mind just went blank. Pappy, yeah. So I had this crazy collection of all these different Pappy bottles. And a year goes by in the business and we're like, okay, well, we're out of them. Let's get some more. So I call the company up and I'm like, hey, I just need some more. And they're like, you don't have any allocation. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm looking at the empty bottles that are on my shelf. And they're like, oh, well, who was your rep? And I tell them the rep's name. And they're like, oh, well, that rep is no longer working for us. Apparently that rep was giving me someone else's allocation.
Yeah.
And that's how I had this awesome collection.
Oh my God.
Because he
That's
was working
hilarious.
the system. So yeah, you allocations is a crazy thing.
The only place that I've ever walked into that made me like want to actually rob a place was Bardstown, when in their like whiskey vault with when they have you been there?
I haven't, no.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, go there and walk in that room and you will be mad because you'll want everything. They have a bottle. There's only like 2 or 3 left in the world. It's from the 1800s. They have some that are from Prohibition, like they have a Prohibition bottle that the president commissioned so that they had their own bourbon, because when the president rules don't apply to you. Yeah. And so it was like the bottle that they had stashed in the White House that they have. So it's pretty interesting, all the stuff that they've got. What is you've said you've traveled the world and you've done a lot of interesting things. So what's the most interesting thing that what's the most interesting dish that you've made?
That's a great question.
Ooh, I did a grilled kangaroo steak with strawberry rhubarb barbecue. That was pretty weird.
Wow.
Yeah, people were tripped out on that. I thought it was delicious. I mean, I'm not afraid to eat anything though. Like
try everything once, right?
Yeah, I like.
Have you ever had rattlesnake?
Oh yeah.
It's delicious. And people are like, why would you eat that?
I live in Texas. Like, you
like,
get a lot of steak in Texas.
I've had snake. I've had armadillo. What are you talking about?
Don't eat the calf fries. That's where they get you. They'll tell you. It's the same thing as Rocky Mountain oysters, by the way. That's how they got me.
Yeah.
But that was a cool one. Eating raw horse in Japan. That was a trip.
Raw horse.
Yeah, it's like the part from the neck right here. It's like this most delicate part is right on the neck. So it's like a little loin, and you just a little soy sauce, and welcome to Japan.
And you liked it?
It was delicious. It's really good.
Wow,
I don't know if I would have been able to eat that.
I don't think I would.
Of horse. Because I'd have thrown like a horse steak on the grill and be like, whatever. The raw part would have got me.
I always think about that scene in what was that movie? I think it was called the Cowboy Way or something with Woody Harrelson, and he's sitting at that restaurant table in this fine dining restaurant, his boots on, his cowboy hat, and he's like, "I want you to slit its throat, wipe its ass, and put it on the on the plate." Like,
yeah. How do you like your steak cooked?
Mooing.
Yeah.
Yep, give it to me nice and rare. But yeah, that was a crazy one. I mean, anytime I go down south to Louisiana, see the family, I have an uncle that just wants to constantly, like, see if he can just shock you or do something crazy. So he told me one cookout. He's like, "Boy, come on, we're gonna go eat." I'm like, all right. And I don't know shit when I go down there. Like, I literally act like I don't know anything about food.
That's funny.
Because they're all great cooks, right? No one's a chef in Louisiana. Everyone's a great cook. And he takes me to this like backyard on the bayou, like out in the marsh, house party, and like they got fried pork chops, but they ain't pork chops. It's actually raccoon. So they got fried raccoon.
Wow.
They got possum. They got some squirrel. I mean, and then some jambalaya and some red beans and rice. Like just everything, but it's just one of those things where it's like, you ain't scared of me. Give me that hot sauce. Like,
hot sauce will fix everything, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I would eat a possum in a heartbeat. I hate possums. That's the one thing in Connecticut and in New England, it's what's the word for an animal that has a pouch? I'm losing.
Marsupial.
Yeah, it's the only one that's in New England, in the area. And there's so many of them, and they're the ugliest things in the world.
Possums were marsupials.
They are. They're part of they're related to kangaroos. And we see them so much up here. I see so many dead ones laying on the road. I've hit one before, and when I was younger, when I first got my license. And I'll tell you what, they annoy me so much. I would eat one in a heartbeat. I would just to show it up, be like, I'm better. I'm higher on the food chain than you.
You're right.
Yeah,
looks like a big fucking rat.
It's disgusting looking.
When I was when I was working in San Antonio, and I worked out in the hill country. So when I would get off of work, you had to walk this huge lot out in the back area with all these big oak trees, and these possums would just like, fall out of the tree. Like they scare them when you walk by, and then they just fall and like land in front of you, and you're like, oh shit. So, I'd always heard the term play possum. So I was walking out and I like stomped at this possum that was coming by.
Yep.
And he didn't play dead. He looked at me and he hissed. And those little red eyes. So I turned around and I walked back into the hotel and I waited for him to go on his way because I wasn't messing with that possum. Like,
they all have rabies. They're disgusting. And they hiss
possum
at
had
you.
A bad day.
They don't play. They never play. Possums never play possum. They are savage creatures, and honestly,
that's not a real thing.
No,
don't mess with the possums.
They'll
I'm glad you ate one.
So what's next for you? Like, are you doing anything interesting that's coming up in the next couple months?
I mean, I'm always doing interesting stuff. My life's interesting. Like, I'm like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Interesting things that you can share.
Let's see. We are getting through holiday season right now. So restaurants are busy. I'm doing a lot of private events. And then for our anniversary, we're going to sneak off to Mexico for a week. So I got some friends that have a private little villa. And we're just going to go chill out in the jungle for 2 weeks and just disconnect, which I'm excited about. But then I come back and then it's like right back into Top Chef dinner. So I got a chef coming out from New York. Her and I are going to cook, do a big dinner for like 100 people, 6 courses with big wine pairings. All the festivals are starting to kick back off. So a lot of those invites are starting to come out. So start traveling around again. I know I'm heading out down south. I'm going to be in Hilton Head, I think in March. I'm doing one of the festivals end of February. So I'll be out there for a week, which would be cool just because, I love the people out there. And we got Aspen coming up. So that'll be another big one. I mean, and then all the international stuff. We're just really waiting for all this
green light.
Society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks because I've had so many international trips that have just, they just keep getting pushed back, which sucks because I like to travel. But that's my goal. Is like
yeah.
I want to start a company where I just like take people to like wine regions or whiskey regions and just do tours and like
be
do
awesome,
like
yeah.
a cooking class and demos to go with it. I think that would be a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that does that. Like, kind of puts it all together.
Yeah, and like rent a big ass house and like we all stay at the house and then we cook together and you get to chop it up and actually build some kind of relationships, and I think that'd be really cool. So we're trying to launch that.
I get to drink and eat. I'm in.
Right?
Yeah.
I got my
Bourbon
book
with
coming
Friends is
out.
in.
Yep, the book's coming out next. No Luck's Given. It's a memoir. Faith, family, food. Keeping my priorities straight in that order and not fucking that up. So that's a big project that we've been working on for about a year and a half now, and I'm excited because that's going to lead to a lot of book tour spots.
Yep.
So I'm sure I'll be traveling around with that once that's released. So yeah, that's pretty exciting too. But no more restaurants. After COVID, I'm done.
No more restaurants. The
I don't
3
blame
are
you.
done.
Jeez.
You're just doing 3. No more.
Hard. It's been so hard.
Unless
just
it's on a
trying to
bayou,
figure it
right?
out.
You could do the bayou with like you do like a possum and a raccoon recipe.
Yeah,
Maybe
possum
somebody else
special
can do it.
dish every Friday night.
Well, one of
Grilled
the things
possum.
that I love is like we built this studio above one of the restaurants and it seats 24 people. So what's cool about this space is it's very intimate. And I actually like this more than I like the restaurants because for one, I get to cook whatever I want. 2, I get to pair whatever I want. So if I want to do a bourbon dinner, I want to do a rye dinner, I want to do a wine dinner, I can do that up here. So I've actually enjoyed the more intimate, charge a little bit higher for the experience, but it's one-on-one. And then you get to sit there and watch me cook and be in my bar. Like, so this has kind of been our.
That's interesting because you don't see too many people you see a lot of people that are pairing like whiskeys with food, but there's not that many people that are pairing food with whiskey. That's a really interesting concept to me because there are so many people that are saying, this rye whiskey, this spice forward rye whiskey, this is the food that you want to pair with this, A, B, and C. But it's never, we have this, this dish, and these are the whiskeys that you want to pair with that. So that's that's a really cool experience to have. I would assume.
It's funny you say that because I just actually did something like that for the Bourbon Charity Ball. We went through and paired the food to make sure that it would go up with bourbon. For the whole event.
So cool.
One thing too, like we do this a lot with wine, but we do it with whiskey as well. It takes so much more time to get that spirit or that wine into a bottle, right? When you talk about the growth of the harvest, right? Somebody had to plant it, somebody had to tend it, somebody had to harvest it. Right. Then they had to start the distillation process, and then it gets to the aging process. Then it finally gets to a bottle and gets shipped out to you. So you're talking years before it finally reaches you. And for me, that's something that is really important to remember when I'm cooking, because I can't change what's in the bottle. It's done, but I can change the food. So when I taste first to see where the food can go, because I'm tasting these flavors in this bottle, and I'm picking up these spices or these fruit notes and characteristics. So now I can say, I want my dish to either complement or contrast, right? If I'm getting a lot of spice in a spirit, I might intentionally back off the spice in the dish so the spirit can now be the sauce almost. So it's a fun way of looking at it.
Yeah. Oh, that is.
It's so
unique. This is why you talk to a chef about things that you don't actually ever think about when it comes to whiskey. Chef Brother Luck, my man, I'm so thankful that you joined. I appreciate it. Give everyone a shout out on where they can find you on social media and online.
Yeah, you can check me out at chefbrotherluck.com. You can also check me out at Chef Brother Luck across the board on all social media platforms. It's literally that simple. So yeah, and then my name is Brother Luck. So like, just Google it. Like, it's gonna pop up.
Luck.
There's nobody else that you're gonna find with that name. I'm pretty sure you're very unique in that aspect.
Yeah.
My man, I appreciate you coming on the show. It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get out and check out your restaurants and stuff like that in the summer when I head out to Colorado.
Let me know.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep you posted. And thank you everyone for listening. And remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Have a great one.
That's it for this episode of Bourbon with Friends. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a review to make it easier for others to find the show. You can also check us out on Instagram at BWF Podcast. Thanks for listening.